Blessings to you. Blessings to everybody. Shalom. What's going on? Blessings to you as well, Sister Aisha. Blessed to everybody that's tuning in. This is definitely a hot topic. It's a big topic of discussion lately, and so we're gonna deal with this here in just a second. And be able to get an understanding of what's really going on in the scriptures and what's going on, Brother Yalen. How you doing, man? Shalom. We're going to be able to get a thorough, complete understanding of this. Hey, good morning, Mother Joyce. How you doing? And so we're gonna look at this and make sure that we get a thorough understanding. I'm going to do some invites here real quick, and then after that, then we're gonna get into the lesson so we can get some understanding of what's going on. All right, we're gonna get some understanding this morning, so there's no confusion at all whatsoever. And this is definitely a hot topic of discussion, and so thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for inviting. I really appreciate it. And so we're going to deal with these things one at a time. These different conversations of topics in the day in which we live. It seems as though there's a lot of brothers and sisters is putting our brother on trial once again. And so I want to make sure that we get these things clarified and that the Father may receive glory. And so sending out a couple of invites, and then we're going to go in. All right, we're going to go in. So there is no confusion whatsoever anymore concerning this particular topic. All right, make sure there is no confusion whatsoever. All right. What's going on, everybody? Can everybody hear me out there? Is everything good? Can everybody see? Can everybody see the screen? Can everybody hear? Can everybody see? If you can, let me know. You can hear, you can see. Shalom. Sister Nate Holloman. I want to make sure that everybody's able to see and everybody's able to hear this particular lesson. Okay. Just want to make sure everything good before we get started. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to deal with this and make sure that we have some clarity and understanding. And I know brothers and sisters are going to be jumping in, so I'm going to give it a little time for brothers and sisters to come on. This is something that is very well needed, so that way we can't continue to use certain things as a form of discrediting. If we're going to say that the Father's word is official and authentic, I think that we need to make sure that we definitely have some understanding by His Spirit, but also have some understanding in the context and in translations, all right, and what's going on with the scriptures. So I know people are going to be jumping in, so I'm not going to rush on this. I'm going to give it a couple minutes for brothers and sisters to tune in. And this is not a super long lesson, but the lesson is definitely is going to bring some clarity. All right, it's going to bring some clarity. Again, it's not super long, but it's going to bring some clarity to it. It doesn't really take that much to really get into it, to breaking it down, but we're gonna get started here in just a second. All right. So thank you all for tuning in, and We're going to get started here. Thank everybody for joining. Just not tuning in. Shalom. Shalom as well. Shalom to all brothers and sisters who are tuning in. We're going to get started in just a minute. I know some brothers and sisters' phone maybe, sometimes the phone be acting up on Facebook. And sometimes you have to go out and come back in and things of that nature. But we're gonna definitely get started here in just a hot second. All right. Greetings, shalom. Shalom, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to get started, and we're going to build from there, okay? We're going to get started here. In 2 more minutes, we're going to get started, and we're going to break it down, all right? We're going to break it down in 2 more minutes. So we got 2 more minutes before we get started here. And it's gonna be pretty good. It's gonna be some good stuff. All right, it's gonna be some good stuff. All right, so we're gonna break this down in 2 more minutes. 2 minutes, we're gonna go in on this particular subject. All right, we have 1 more minute. 1 more minute. We're gonna go in on the lesson. In 1 more minute, we will be going in on the lesson. Okay. In 1 more minute, we will be going in on the lesson. Okay, let's get started. All right. So what you see here on the screen, you see here, we're doing a lesson. And I know many would probably wonder why. Like, why are you even talking about, or what is the 3 conversions of Apostle Paul? those of you who are new and may not understand what the subject of the conversation is, there is a understanding that according to the biblical text, that there are three different stories to Paul's conversion. The other night, in a debate, Elder Demetri Milligan, who is my elder, he was engaged in a debate with a Christian apologist who is a Reformed theologist and named K-Dub. And so he mentioned to K-Dub about the three conversions accounts of Apostle Paul. And so there was some conversation that ensued and some misunderstanding. There were some things that Elder said, he clarified. And those of us who know his heart and know what he was meaning to say, and sometimes in the heat of conversation, sometimes you aren't able to articulate in the heat of a debate. And so there was something that Elder said in that course of the debate. And so I saw within the group, there were several in the group who were, pretty much going at Paul. And so one of the claims is that the Apostle Paul is not an apostle. He's not fit to be an apostle. The other claim is that Paul is a liar because there are three different versions of his story in which he supposedly had given. And so as an apologist, one who defends the gospel, I'm not a Hebrew apologist, a Christian apologist. I am one who defends historically, as well as one who defends the text and happen to embrace my Hebrew heritage. Okay, not Jewish heritage, Hebraic. Okay, it's a difference. So then I get a phone call from a brother that's close to me, and this conversation came up again about, well, why should we trust Paul? He gives three different accounts of his story, which would make him a liar. And so looking through social media as well, I begin to see in different groups or different conversations or different people holding on, this is the new smoking gun. Or this is not, I won't say the new smoking gun, but this is something that is being brought up again in our day, being used as another gun against Paul, to say that he should not be trusted. And so the thing is that we see that our beloved brother, he was on trial one time before by those in his day and age, in which he had to defend himself for teaching against the Torah. And so we know that these accounts dealing with Acts chapter 21, all the way throughout the book of Acts, you see Paul on trial. And so he had to defend himself regarding accusations against him of teaching against his people, as well as teaching against the Torah, as well as bringing a Gentile into the inner courts of the temple, which could not be proven. And now in our day and age, once again, we have our brother being placed on trial again by the modern era of people who didn't even walk during his day, by the modern era of brothers and sisters who don't like certain things of the way he rolled, and things of that nature. And so there has to be some type of dialogue or some type of diving into these things to get a form of understanding, to make sure that this doesn't happen again, to make sure that there's enough ammunition out there to show. We have to understand something, man, that the beloved brother was the most intelligent, practical, and spiritual brother out of all, even the disciples who walked with HaMashiach. Let's start there. His level of intellect, when it came down to the Torah, was far beyond anything that Peter had, was far beyond anything that any apostle who was a disciple at the time ever had. Even Paul understood that, man, y'all disciples, y'all apostles who walk with Christ, y'all not even as intelligent as within the law. But what y'all do have, the spirit and faith, is what allows you to be able to function, to be able to be what you were, and to be able to fulfill your mission. They were actually functioning before they even got the spirit. They were functioning on mere faith. When he was sending them into towns 2 by 2, he was sending them into town. They were functioning on faith. They had not gotten the Holy Spirit yet until they got to the upper room, to Acts chapter number 1, Acts chapter number 2. The next thing that we have to understand, before we even get into the accounts of dealing with Paul, we have to understand that if we're going to use 2 Peter 3, 15 through 18, to try to tell people that the way Paul writes is hard to be understood, we just can't use that to tell and prove other people that they're wrong in their doctrine. We also, when dealing with Paul, whether it's a letter from Paul or something written about Paul, we still have to take into consideration that 2 Peter 3, 15 through 18 should also apply to teaching us in how we approach anything dealing with Paul. Not just to prove that others don't know what they're talking about, but even when we go to the scriptures and deal with anything that's relating to Paul, you have to take into account of what Peter said even to yourself with how you deal with him. When it starts talking about things are hard to be understood. When Peter says that, Peter not just talking to people who don't know the scriptures or who don't know the Torah or who haven't heard about things that were going on. Peter is also relaying that to even the learned. Because you can't just take and use it when you want to use it. You have to use it to apply to yourself, to even teach yourself to be careful with how you come and deal with Paul. It doesn't matter if it's something that Paul wrote or if someone's writing concerning Paul. I still have to comb the scriptures with a fine-tooth comb when I'm dealing with Paul. Every word is of the utmost importance to getting context and to getting understanding. Now, the book that's in question isn't a Paul letter. It's not something that Paul wrote. It's something that somebody else wrote. Let's start that. Let's start out that from the get-go. Before we even get into any form of understanding, we need to know, do we know the difference between when someone is actually writing and when something is an anonymous writing? Do we have that understanding? This is why it's important for us, and I tell people all the time, it's a benefit to have some form of training. It's a benefit. I'm not telling you to go to school to get it. I'm saying sit under somebody that can teach you properly how to dissect the scriptures. I ain't talking about somebody approaching it to discredit it. I ain't talking about somebody approaching it to just come up with their own thing and to prove that this is all about getting some form of information. I'm talking about somebody who's genuinely fasting and praying, who's spending time with the Most High. You see it in their life. And those who do go to school, just know when you go to any type of institution, you need to make sure that you know how to chew the meat up and spit out the bones. But some form of training is valuable. I'm seeing brothers and sisters trying to teach the Bible and don't even have no form of training in no area. They don't know what an anonymous writer is. They don't know who wrote a particular book. They don't know if they don't know the difference between Paul's letters. They don't know when it's the Most High talking and when it's the other person talking. They don't know what inspiration is. All of these things are very important to understanding the basics before you even get. Some folk don't even know how to even go into using a concordance. They don't even have, some folks don't even own a Bible dictionary. And yet they trying to teach. All because they think it's cool. They think that anybody can teach. Or, well, you don't need no teacher, so therefore the Spirit gonna teach you. See, this is what we fell in around. Everybody had a teacher. Everybody had somebody in the Bible that taught them on some kind of level. They didn't just run out here, you don't need no teacher. That's the reason why we got so many brothers teaching in error. Because they think they don't need nobody, no teacher. They think they don't need no training and no development. That's why we got to do a lesson on this, which is something that should be elementary. Paul is being on trial in our day more so and much more than anybody. Is Paul the Hamashiach? Absolutely not. And I would never put him above the Hamashiach. But at the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. Now we're going to get some understanding about these three conversions, or what we deem as quote unquote three different stories. And he can't be trusted. Okay, now let's look at this. We're going to get into the first one. Conversion number one. Conversion number one, Acts 9 and 7. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. Now, here's the first account. We all know that this is, if you don't know anything else about the other conversions, you know that this particular conversion in Acts chapter number 9 is the first account. And we know that, well, Paul at one point in time was killing believers or throwing them in jail, people of the way, and all these different things that was going on, or those who followed Christ, okay? And we know that this is when he met, okay, when he came into meeting the one who he was kicking the pricks against. All right. The spirit of Hamashiach. This is the first time we see this. All right. So let's focus in on what everybody's focusing in on. And that's the word voice. Hearing a voice. And this is talking about the men. This ain't even talking about Paul. This is talking about the men. Okay. Let's get something understood here. This is not Paul writing. This is not Paul writing. Okay. So the men which journeyed with him stood speechless. Okay. Hearing a voice, but seeing no man. Here's the second conversion account. Acts 22:9. And they that were with him saw indeed the light and were afraid. But they heard not a voice. Wait a minute, hold on. This is confusing. How is it that 1 minute in Acts 22:9 it says that they didn't hear no voice, but in Acts 9:7 it said they hear a voice. Wait a minute, this is confusing. This has to be, this is contradicting. And supposedly we're not supposed to trust Paul because he's contradicting himself. Let's see. The third conversion account. This is his encounter with King Agrippa. Look what it says. Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me, and them which journeyed with me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying, Saul, in the Hebrew tongue. So Paul is clearly telling you that the Most High, or that the Hamashiach spoke to him in Hebrew, not in Greek. Okay, so we got that understood. Shaul, Shaul, why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the prick. And I said, who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yeshua, or Jesus, or Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. Wait a minute, hold on. So you're telling me in the first two conversions account, Paul focuses on one person. He said one time he said they heard a voice. Then the next minute he said that they didn't hear a voice. Now he ain't even talking about it at all. This is three different conversions accounts that Apostle Paul is telling three different stories. We shouldn't be dealing with him. We shouldn't trust him. This is what's being taught. We shouldn't deal with him, and we shouldn't trust him, because it seems as though Paul is giving three different accounts. 1 minute he says that they heard a voice in Acts 9 and 7. The next minute in Acts 22 and 9, they didn't hear a voice. Now in Acts 26 and 12 through 15, when he's dealing with King Agrippa, he don't even talk about the others hearing a voice. This guy is confused. He's confused as all get out. And if he's confused, we shouldn't be dealing with him. This is exactly what's being pushed and used as the gun to discredit or shoot down our beloved brother, Paul. These three accounts. One, we must understand who is writing. That's what we must understand. And two, we need to focus in on the word voice, or hearing, or the men that was about. Let's get some understanding of this word, because this is what's in question about, he's contradicting himself about what they're hearing. So if he's contradicting himself about what they're hearing, then we need to focus in on the word, do a word study. See, simple word studies help you get an understanding. You can parse all day long, but if you don't do a proper word study, have an understanding of words, then you're going to have a problem. And this is simple, elementary, that's tripping folk up. I just did a lesson the other day telling you about the great falling away. And then I told you in that Christ said that many false prophets are going to rise and say, many false prophets are going to rise and deceive. People are not even falling away by any pressure of a gun being put to their head. They falling away just simply off of what somebody said. Off simply what somebody said. What somebody told you. And you don't study to show yourself approved, Israel. You can't study to show yourself approved. You spend more time watching everybody else. How many times have I said that? I can get off of this live, and everybody that goes live in the Hebrew community today, I'll see y'all on their live. You ain't got time to pray. You don't have time to fast. You don't have time to sit and talk with the Most High. You don't have time to even do a word study. You don't have time to do nothing because you're too busy wanting knowledge. You're too busy wanting the next verse to be able to use it to tear somebody down with. That's why you can't get no understanding. That's why the Father can't deal with you and give you simple revelations. Because you codependent on other people's study. And then when you get their study, you try to take their lesson and go teach it, and it don't work out for you. Because it's a level of spirit that goes into teaching. Because only the Spirit can give you the revelation, and only the Ruach can give you the ability to teach. And some of y'all don't even have the spirit of a teacher. Just because somebody put a PowerPoint together, that don't mean they are a teacher. There's a spirit that comes with all of these callings, and these offices, and these gifts. There's a spirit behind it. Not just because you can open up the book. And henceforth lies the problem. And that's why you get tripped up. And start following all kind of madness. Following all kind of madness. And this permeates in every aspect of your life. Because you approach God as of none importance. You feel obligated that he should do something for you. The Most High ain't obligated to do nothing for you, just like he's not obligated to give you revelation. You partner with him in your revelation. That's why he says study to show yourself approved. There's some things that I'm going to do, and there's some things I'm going to give you based off of what you do, what I tell you to do, on your obedience. You want to grow in revelation? Then it's going to take you growing in prayer. It's going to take you growing with an open heart. It's going to take you growing with a forgiving heart. If you don't grow with a forgiving heart, he ain't giving you nothing. He's not pouring nothing into you. And he's not going to even manifest in your life. If you're not growing in prayer, then he's not going to talk to you. Period. If you're not growing, if you're not fasting, then your spirit man is not going to grow to the level of strength that it needs to be able to deal with all of these things in the world. You just walking around with a title, knowing who you are, with no spirit and no revelation. You are a walking destruction. And your reward is your title and knowing who you are. That's it. That's your reward. You ain't going nowhere past that, beyond that. And the Father ain't opening up no doors for you because he's not going to let you go in there and allow you to make him look like a fool. I've said it over and over and over and over and over again. So we begin to look at these three accounts, okay? All right, Acts 9 and 7. It says that they heard a voice. Acts 22 and 9. It says that they didn't hear a voice. Acts 26, 12 through 15. Paul doesn't even really mention anything about them hearing nothing. So therefore, if you look at this from the aspect of where you're viewing it, you're going to say, wait, but this is three different accounts. Paul can't be trusted. But let's get into this and let's understand. Paul is not the one who's writing. This is not a letter to Corinth. This is not a letter to Galatia. This is not Romans. This is not Ephesus. This is not Thessalonica. This is Acts. And Paul is not the one, the author of it. This is not a letter he's writing to people. This is someone else who's writing. Now let's get into this word, because the question is about the hearing. They didn't hear nothing and all of these things, okay? So the question is, the word that we need to research is voice. That is the word of importance. Now, let's get some understanding of this. Let's, number one, understand the word voice and break this down into Strong's, okay? In Acts 9, 11 and 9, the word voice, but the voice answered me. We're going to look at that word. In Acts 9 and 7, the word voice is the same concordance word, the same Greek word, 54, 56, phone. It means a sound, a tone. As musical instruments, a voice of the sound of uttered words, speech of a language or tongue. So when you're dealing with this word voice, whatever scripture you're dealing with, you have to understand the context of that scripture, but also understand the intent of that scripture to understand what's going on within that scripture. So this word phone can mean multiple things when it comes down to voice. Let's get that understood. So in one instance, in Acts 9 and 7, Acts 9 and 7, Paul said they were hearing a voice. Then in Acts 22 and 9, it said they didn't hear a voice. It's the same word. The question is, what type of voice did they hear and they did not hear? That's the question in understanding this mystery, supposedly. Or he can't be trusted because his account. He said, one they say they didn't hear a voice, the other man say he did hear the voice. So we have to understand in this concordant word phone, you see the meaning of the word voice when you're dealing with these scriptures. Now let's get some more example. Number 2, 1 Corinthians 14 and 8. For if the trumpet give a certain sound, in this context or this aspect of this script verse, the word sound is not dealing with a voice or speech. It's dealing with an instrument. Who shall prepare himself to battle. It's the same word. Same Greek number, different understand or different intent with the word sound. So the question is Acts 9 and 7 the word sound? Is it the same as Acts 22 and 9, the word sound? Is it the same? It's the same word, but is the intent of the understanding in which the account is given, is it talking about a literal voice of uttered words? Is the question. We have to understand these things. Voice number 3. Same word used 2 different ways in the Greek. We go to Revelation chapter number 1 and verse number 15. Look at what it says. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burnt in a furnace. And his voice, that same word phone, meaning the uttered words, as the sound, okay, meaning sound or a form of noise or tone, okay, was as many waters, meaning that waters doesn't have a voice. Waters doesn't have a voice. Water makes sound. Water doesn't make words. Water gives sounds. It makes a sound. It doesn't have words. It doesn't have a speech. It doesn't have a language in the way that we understand, the way we talk. So it's 2 different ways in the Greek. The same word, one in his voice, okay, meaning language or tongue or speech or uttered words. The other one can be related to a sound or a tone. Now let's go to the next. Let's get some understanding. Luke is writing. Luke is writing. How do we know this? Look what he says. And the men which journeyed with him. This ain't Paul talking. I mean, this is not Paul writing. Luke is telling you the story of what happened. He's not sitting in front of Paul saying, hey, Paul, what exactly happened on that road to Damascus? No, Luke knows the story. So Luke is writing in the position that he's in as the scribe, telling you, hey, it was some people with him. It's no different than you've been an eyewitness and the police come and ask you what happened during the robbery at the store. Was he by himself? You can say, no, it was some people with him. In Acts 9 and 7, it gives it from a third party. From a perspective of, hey, they was with him. Will let you know Luke is writing. Luke wrote, he wrote the book of Acts. But I want you to understand in the way that, again, remember, I said earlier on, with the way Paul writes, can be hard to be understood. And that's dealing with even if Paul letters or anything relating to Paul. Anything relating to Paul, you have to take into consideration that you comb every word with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that you're getting everything out of it. So you don't go out here teaching something wrong. Acts 22:9. And they that were with me, this is Paul talking now. One aspect, Luke gives his perspective. Not just as the writer, but based off his understanding of the story. Then in Acts 22 and 9, you see Paul is given the account of the story. Paul is giving his account of the story from his personal It's not a third party, but yet Luke is writing what Paul is saying or said. And in Acts 9 and 7, Luke is saying, okay, listen, these guys were with him. In 22:9, Paul said, they were with me. One says, with him. The other says, with me. With him. With me. With him. With me. And they that were with me saw indeed the light and were afraid. But they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. So let's break this down and get an understanding of what this is saying. What I want to do is, this is saying, it's not they're saying that they didn't hear nothing, because this is the KJV. Now let's go to the ESV, and we're going to see the ESV makes it a little more clear. It says, now these who were with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice. So in Acts 9 and 7, Paul heard the language, the dialogue, the dialect, the conversation that Christ spoke to him and he understood. In Acts 22 and 9, Paul is saying that they heard a voice, but they couldn't understand it. It was just like sound to them. Just remember that word phone is three different understandings of the same Greek word. So what Paul is saying in Acts 22 and 9, he's saying that they could not understand what was being said to me. But in Acts 9 and 7, I was having a conversation with Hamashiach. And I understood what he said, but to them, it was just sounds. A whole lot of noise, whether it was just some form of noise that they couldn't make out. So Paul saying they couldn't hear the conversation that I had between me and Hamashiach, but they heard some crazy. They heard something they couldn't get an understanding of. Paul said, I was talking to him because he called me. So I got the directions and the understanding of what was going on and got it. But because that conversation was between me and him, he made sure that they couldn't understand it. So to them, it was just mere noise with no understanding. The same way like we have a lot of people who teach. You hear it, but it's a whole bunch of noise. And you walk away with no understanding. You walk away with no understanding. You heard a lot of noise. You got a lot of information, but you walked away with no understanding. It's the same thing. So when the Most High reveals things to you, absolutely, Brother Roy, it's the same situation. When Moses was speaking to the Most High, he talked to him in conversation. But in Exodus 20, when the people wanted to talk to the Most High, and he began to talk, the noise was so loud they were afraid. No, we don't want to hear that voice no more. Don't talk, though. We don't want to hear that. It was a lot of noise that they could not understand or comprehend. And it's the same thing going on here. They heard a voice, but they couldn't understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. Acts 26 in verse number 12. Now let's get an understanding of this. This is an account where Paul is facing King Agrippa. Okay? Paul is in conversation with Agrippa. Luke is writing based off the story. This trial is not about the men that were with Paul in Acts 26 and 12. This is about Paul. So if all three of us together and we're in a situation and this situation about me don't have nothing to do with y'all, I don't have to mention y'all name or details about what y'all experience when it's about me making sure that I get out, that I find my way out of this situation. Paul is on trial. He's dealing with King Agrippa. Okay. So the account is about Paul. It's not about the people. The other two, the people were involved in it because they were there to bring forth an understanding. And that way people can understand the conversion account of who was there. In this instance, in chapter 26, this is about Paul making sure he cleared his name. He ain't got nothing to talk about with the other. It's no different in Acts chapter 21 when the apostles told Paul to take 4 men who had a vow on them. When Paul got on trial, Paul ain't mentioned them other 4 folks that were with him because they didn't need to even be in the conversation because this was about me clearing my name. This ain't even about them other 4 brothers. This ain't even about the other 4 brothers. This is about Paul clearing his name, not the other people that was with him. That's why he doesn't get into all of this detailed information about everybody that was there. He's given him a short breakdown without full detail. Y'all do this all the time. Y'all do this all the time. Y'all could be I could talk to 10 people that went to James 1-on-1 conference last year. And if I asked all 10 of them, what happened at the conference, y'all gonna leave out some details. And I talked to each and every person. I talked to one person, they're gonna give one aspect of the detail. I talked to another person, they're gonna give another aspect of the detail. And then somebody that's gonna come along and gonna give more information of the detail that y'all didn't give, and they're gonna leave off what y'all told me. And I'm like, man, I come back to y'all and say, man, why you didn't tell me this? Oh man, I forgot, man. Oh man, it just wasn't important for me to tell you about that. I just want to tell you the good stuff. We do this all the time. And we approach the scripture without the same common sense. Oh, well, Paul, Paul didn't give all these details, so he can't be trusted. And y'all jokers do this all the time. You know what? Maybe we need to start not trusting y'all. Maybe we need to, let's not be hypocritical about this. Let's take the same way y'all approach the scriptures and want to dissect it and call everybody out and say this person ain't true and you can't. Let's apply that to your life. Let me look at your life and let me say, you know what? That brother there, man, he done had 10 jobs this year. He can't be trusted. Hey, man, that brother didn't tell me the full story of why he got fired. He can't be trusted. Why don't we do the same way y'all do the scriptures? Let's apply it to some of y'all lives. And let's see. Oh, man, that cat there, he messed around on his wife. And then he tried to make her look like she was the victim. He didn't tell me this part of the story. He can't be trusted. Why don't we start doing that? Now, we only do this when it comes to the scriptures to prove don't listen to this guy right here. All because you have something going on in you because you don't like certain things that he do. You don't like Hamashiach and the way he go about things. So therefore, you're going to say, oh, that's why I don't deal with him. That's why I don't deal with him. I don't deal with Paul because I only want Israel to be saved. So I don't even deal with Paul. cares what you want? What you want ain't getting nobody in the kingdom. It ain't getting you in there or nobody else. And instead of admitting your issue that you have, don't try to make the brother look bad. Just say, you know what, man, I can't get down with that, so I don't want to get down with him. No, you don't want to say that. Because you don't want to be truthful with yourself about the situation. Let's read what it says. Acts 26:12. Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, he's talking to King Agrippa, I saw in the way a light from heaven above, the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. See that? He said, I saw the light around about me and them who journeyed with me. I ain't saying, I'm not bringing it up their name because they need to be involved in this. I'm focusing on the light and how bright the light was and how much ground it covered. The only reason why he mentioned them in this is because he's talking about how bright the light was and how much ground it covered. This ain't got nothing to do with them folk that was with him. He just focusing on how much ground the light covered. See what it says? Verse number 13. Shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. And when we were fallen to the earth, I heard a voice. Okay? This is about me. This is Paul talking. The same way with Paul talking in Acts 22:9. This is Paul talking. Okay? So this is out of the horse's mouth, but the horse didn't write it. But this is out of his mouth. No different than when the police take your police report. You didn't write it. You gave him the information. And guess what? That information can be held up against you in the courts as fact. Let's keep reading. Look what it says. Verse number 14. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, not unto them. They ain't got nothing to do with this. They ain't standing trial. You don't hear them other brothers that was with Paul. You don't hear them on trial with him facing King Agrippa. No, Paul himself is by himself on trial. Is by himself on trial. So the trial is about him, not the people that was with him. Let's keep reading. And when we were fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying in the Hebrew tongue, Shaul, Shaul, why persecutest thou me? Not everybody else. Why you persecuting me? It is hard for thee to kick against the prick. And I said, because I understand the voice, I know the language of the Hebrew. This is a dialect. This is a language, not a sound. This ain't a trumpet. It's not a musical instrument. This is a language in which I understand. That's why it says in the Hebrew. And I said in response to the voice that I understand, who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yeshua, whom thou persecutest. So brothers and sisters, I hope this lesson really gave you a lot of clarity, gave you a lot of understanding. Paul ain't giving three different stories of his account. Luke is giving his understanding of what took place from his own understanding of the story, leaving out thorough details. Acts 22:9, Paul is talking, even though he's not writing, but he's talking. That's why he said they was with me And Luke said they was with him. And in Acts 26, Paul is on trial. Or Paul is standing in front of King Agrippa, defending himself, giving his account of what happened based off of himself to make sure that he gets freed or to prove his case. He's not there to defend the other people around him. So if you're just not joining, go back to the beginning. We gave a strong breakdown. We gave a thorough understanding of this account. And hopefully, because now, again, like I said, when it took the other day when Elder Dimitri did the debate, I saw a whole lot of brews just going in like, yeah, see, you can't try. I told you, Paul, he got 3 different accounts. You can't trust him. I told you, you can't trust that cat. And see, the next thing I'm going to deal with this apostleship. I'm going to deal with this apostleship. And I'm going to go through every disciple that walked with Christ. And if there's a disciple that's labeled as an apostle that did not walk with Christ, y'all going to have some problems. It's going to be hell to pay. Because if there's anybody that is labeled an apostle that didn't walk with Christ, and he got a book, the same way you deal with Paul, you better deal with them the same way. This is why I keep telling folks. I'm trying to get y'all to understand, man. You can't just go out here spewing out stuff. All because today you find out you Israel. Then you go to YouTube and you start listening to other folks on YouTube. Because most folks that come into the truth, they start on YouTube and their teachers become YouTube teachers. And so they become codependent upon all the YouTube teachers, all the YouTube lessons, all these different things. I'm not saying that YouTube, they don't have no teachers on there who teaching thorough. But if you become codependent and you ain't doing your proper research, you ain't doing your proper study, you ain't putting in your proper prayer time, you ain't putting in your proper fast time, you ain't doing none of this stuff, and all you're doing is become codependent, and everybody that go live, you on their lives, and all this other stuff, and you going out here teaching, again, you're going to have hell to pay because you're teaching something that you yourself didn't thoroughly understand, that the Most High never told you to teach, and now you're leading a whole lot of people astray. Some form of training is very important. Some form of training, some form of study preparation. You just can't just look at the scriptures and then create a doctrine and start trying to teach or try to discredit somebody based off of you reading a scripture. Because you have to understand these things go through translations. There's a translation process that takes place. And words, there weren't words back then that there are now. So they have to be translated into the modern era. And that doesn't mean that the same word that's translated in the modern day means the same that it did in ancient times. Folks need to learn how to break down English words first before you start trying to learn Hebrew and Greek. I mean, just break down basic words. Like sound. Something as simple as breaking down the word sound to give understanding of the scriptures. So you don't be out here teaching crazy or talking about Paul got 3 different stories. Even looking at key words. A word as simple as those who were with him and with me. Something as simple as with him and with me should have a light bulb should have went off. Like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. So when you read the Bible, yes, you read it through the Hebraic lens, but you also have to look at every word. Every single word. As words such as is, are, they. Don't just read it just to try to, and a lot of times we just read it just to try to find certain agendas or certain things that we want to, you know, defeat somebody with or prove that they're wrong. Versus you study the scriptures, because if this is going to be your life, then you need to make sure that you apply it properly to your life. And so every word matters. Every word your life is dependent upon. And when you approach the scriptures by taking thinking or taking into account that every word is of the utmost importance to your revelation or to your understanding, then you approach the scriptures that way. So a word like of is magnified. With him, with me. If you understand with him and with me, that changed the whole aspect of your thinking dealing with these accounts. Amen. I pray that you cannot eat without eating from the word of Yah. For man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeded out of the mouth of Yah. I pray that you cannot drink without drinking from the living waters that flows from HaMashiach. Let the light that is within you shine bright outside of you. And remember to love one another so that the world may know that we serve the true and living Yah. Until next time, brothers and sisters, big up, stay tuned. I'm definitely going to be dealing with a lot of lessons. I'm going back through a whole lot of things. A lot of things going to be put on the table, and make sure that, because in this day and age, the deception is real. So we need to make sure that we getting everything. I told y'all in 2019, I'm going to make sure I'm going to go through every calendar that everybody teach. And I'm going to show you how every last one of them ain't going to matter. Every calendar that everybody hold dear to their heart as truth. I'm going to go through every last one of these calendars. And I'm going to dissect them all. And I'm going to show you how eventually it's either going to change because the person going to change it. Because the person going to change it. Because all of these calendars ain't going to matter. So since we putting Paul on trial, I'm going to do PowerPoints and I'm going to put every last one of these calendars on trial. And I'm going to show you how none of these calendars that y'all hold dear as the truth, they ain't going to even matter. And that's why they keep changing. That's why people keep debating and going over back and forth about the calendar. And this person got this calendar. And then one person, he'll hold on to this calendar or she'll hold on to this calendar for 3 years. The next thing you know, she on another calendar. And then that person on another calendar. You know why? You know why they jump around like that? Because they're not going to ever find the perfect one. You know why? Because the Most High is so jacked up with man that the Most High, when he come back, he's going to fix it all. So you jumping around and you trying to find out, you arguing about what this brother here doing and that brother doing. I'm going to show you that even your calendar, every last one of them, that ain't going to even matter. They're not even going to even matter. And all of them got flaws. Every last one of them. Keep the feast of the Most High out of obedience. And out of your love for him. All this stuff, all this arguing, this stuff ain't gonna even matter. So we want to put Paul on trial and say certain things about his conversions and all this other stuff that don't trust him. No, we're not gonna deal with that. We're gonna prove all things. Okay. Our beloved brother ain't crazy. All right, he's not crazy. All right. So let's keep rolling right here, man. I love y'all with the love of Christ, man. I'm going to get off of here. Definitely, man, if you want to, definitely you're just not tuning in. You want to go back to the beginning of the lesson so you can get some understanding. All right. Shalom.